Welcome back, Drifters. Tonight's signal's coming to you from a quiet townhouse in Baltimore. The lights are low, rain taps softly against the windows, and dinner is already underway. Our host this evening is a man of exceptional refinement, a respected psychiatrist, a patron of the arts, a connoisseur of fine music, world travel, and impeccably prepared cuisine. For many, Dr. Hannibal Lecter is the sort of man one turns to when life becomes difficult to digest. Each night, he opens his home to listeners from all walks of life. Some call seeking advice. Some are burdened by grief, anxiety, or loneliness. Others carry darker appetites, thoughts they would never share in polite company. Dr. Lecter listens to them all, and as he does, he prepares an elegant meal with the same care and attention he brings to every conversation. Because whether one is composing a symphony, uncorking a Chianti, or examining the hidden impulses of the human mind, the secret, as always, lies in cultivating taste. But before we join Dr. Lecter in the kitchen, a quick request. If you enjoy the finer things in life, please subscribe to the channel. It helps keep the signal alive and allows us to continue our drift into strange and unforgettable places. And for those refined souls who want to support the project further, check out the links below. Your support is the lifeblood of our kitchen. Now then, the wine has been poured, the knives are sharpened, and our host is waiting to hear from his first caller. So, turn off the lights and settle in. Tonight, you're invited to dinner.
It's time once again for Cooking with Dr. Lecter. Tonight, Dr. Hannibal Lecter prepares a memorable dish while taking your calls and sharing reflections on food, music, art, and the complexities of the human mind. And now, Dr. Lecter.
Good evening, and welcome. I'm Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and you're listening to Cooking with Dr. Lecter.
Tonight, we'll be preparing a classic Milanese dish, osso buco with risotto. It's a wonderfully patient recipe. Veal shanks are gently browned and braised for several hours with wine, stock, and aromatic vegetables until the meat becomes fork tender and the marrow softens into something quite extraordinary. Alongside it, we'll prepare a saffron risotto whose delicate perfume and color provide a perfect counterpoint. Simple ingredients, treated with care, can often reveal remarkable depths, as they do in people. Throughout the evening, we'll be taking your calls on matters of food, art, music, travel, and, of course, the more intricate workings of the human mind. Whether you're wrestling with anxiety, troubled by recurring thoughts, or simply wondering what wine might best accompany tonight's supper, you are most welcome here. I've opened a Chianti this evening, a thoughtful wine, structured, complex, and inclined to linger, much like certain conversations. So, whether you're joining me from a quiet kitchen of your own or listening from somewhere far less comfortable, I invite you to settle in. The veal is resting at room temperature, the stock is warm, and the evening, I suspect, will be quite revealing. Let's begin.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter. My name's Margaret.
Good evening, Margaret. Thank you for calling. How may I help you tonight?
My husband passed a little over a year ago.
Oh, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you. We were married for 36 years. I still find myself cooking his favorite meals. Sometimes I even set a place for him at the table.
Tell me, how does that make you feel?
Comforted, I suppose, but also a little foolish.
There's nothing foolish about ritual.
My daughter thinks I'm having trouble letting go.
Perhaps you're honoring a life that was deeply intertwined with your own.
Is it unhealthy?
Not necessarily. Love often survives as habit. We continue to set the table for those who shaped us, even after they're no longer present to join us.
I still talk to him sometimes.
And what do you say to him?
I tell him about my day. I tell him what the grandchildren are doing. Sometimes I ask what he would think.
That sounds less like illness and more like remembrance.
I worry that if I stop, he'll disappear.
The dead don't leave us when we stop speaking to them. They remain in our gestures, our tastes, and the small rituals we carry forward.
So you don't think I'm crazy?
Not at all. Grief is just love that's lost its usual place to go.
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
The question isn't whether you set the plate. The question is whether the gesture nourishes you or prevents you from inviting others to the table.
I think perhaps both.
Then you may keep the memory, while still allowing room for new company when they're ready.
He always loved osso buco.
A man of excellent taste.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter. I feel much better.
You're very welcome, Margaret. And memories, like a well-prepared meal, are best savored rather than rushed. While our veal shanks continue to brown, filling the kitchen with an aroma of butter, olive oil, and just the faintest hint of caramelization, I'm reminded of an evening in Milan many years ago. My host was an elderly surgeon with impeccable manners and a somewhat mischievous sense of humor. He insisted that the process of the osso buco depended not on the ingredients themselves, but on one's willingness to be patient. Do not rush the process, he told me. The finest qualities reveal themselves only after sufficient heat and pressure. He was, as surgeons often are, a man who understood anatomy. Later that evening, when the dish was served, he showed me how to coax the marrow from the center of the bone with a small silver spoon. Many diners overlook it entirely. A pity, as it is in many respects the most rewarding part. I once served this dish to a guest who assured me he had no taste for such things. Had I described it too precisely, he might never have tried it at all. But once he did, he found it quite irresistible. Taste, you see, often begins where prejudice ends. Now, our veal has developed a beautiful golden crust, which is exactly what we want. We'll set the shanks aside and begin building the foundation of the braise with onion, carrot, and celery. The simplest ingredients, treated with patience and care, are capable of extraordinary transformation.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter. My name's Stephen, or Steve.
Good evening, Stephen. Are you troubled tonight?
I am. I haven't been sleeping much.
Tell me what's weighing on you.
I think my wife is having an affair.
And what leads you to believe that?
Well, she's distant, guarded, and always on her phone. Now, she says I'm imagining things, but I know her. Something's changed.
And how has that change affected you?
I can't think about anything else. I keep imagining her with him.
Him.
Whoever he is.
And what happens when you imagine him?
I picture confronting him. Sometimes more than that.
More than that?
I think about hurting him.
And how do those thoughts make you feel?
Ashamed, but also calmer.
Well, it's not unusual.
It isn't?
Violent fantasies are often less about harm than they are about restoring a sense of control when one feels humiliated.
That's exactly it. I feel humiliated.
Betrayal has a way of sharpening the appetite.
So what am I supposed to do?
Recognize that the fantasy serves a purpose. It allows your mind to rehearse power in a situation where you presently feel powerless.
But what if I actually do something?
Take this from me, Stephen. There is a considerable difference between savoring a thought and acting upon it.
Savoring?
We do not need to consume every impulse that presents itself.
I suppose that makes sense.
For now, your task is to tolerate uncertainty, gather facts before you permit emotion to dictate your behavior.
So having these thoughts doesn't make me a monster?
No, Stephen. It makes you human.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter.
You're very welcome, Stephen, and I do genuinely hope you find clarity. Good night, Stephen.
Good night.
Hi, Dr. Lecter. I'm Michael.
Good evening, Michael. What's on your mind tonight?
I'm a first-year medical student, and lately I've been feeling unsettled.
Unsettled in what way?
We started anatomy lab this semester. At first, I was horrified. I could barely eat afterward.
A very common reaction.
But after a few weeks, something changed.
Changed how?
Well, I stopped feeling disgusted. I started noticing how incredible everything is. The muscles, the nerves, the way everything fits together.
The architecture of the human body is quite extraordinary.
Exactly. It's beautiful.
And that realization troubles you?
Yes. I worry that if I could look at a cadaver and think it's beautiful, maybe something is wrong with me.
On the contrary, Michael. To appreciate structure, especially a structure such as that, is a form of reverence.
Reverence.
The human form is one of nature's most sophisticated compositions. Familiarity often replaces revulsion with understanding.
Sometimes I feel guilty for being fascinated by it.
Beauty and utility are not mutually exclusive.
I've never thought of it that way.
Most physicians learn to see beyond the surface. It's not a loss of humanity. It's the beginning of a deeper respect.
So this doesn't mean I'm becoming cold.
No. It means you're learning to observe carefully.
That's reassuring.
Good. Curiosity, when paired with compassion, is one of the finest qualities a physician can possess.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter.
You're very welcome, Michael. Please continue to look closely. The human body rewards attention. Good night, Michael.
Good night.
As our risotto continues its slow transformation, I find it useful to step away from the stove for a moment and allow the music to do some of the work. The piece playing tonight has always struck me as deceptively simple. A few measured notes repeated with such precision they seem almost mathematical. And yet, with each passing phrase, the emotional weight deepens until something quietly extraordinary begins to emerge. Bach possessed that gift. He understood that order and beauty are not opposites but companions, that the strictest structure can contain the most profound feeling. Many years ago, I attended a small private recital in Leipzig. The host was an antiquarian bookseller with exquisite taste and a regrettable tendency to interrupt the performance in order to explain what the composer must have intended. A tedious habit. He spoke at great length over supper as well. By the end of the evening, however, he had become considerably more reserved, and the remainder of the meal was blessedly quiet. Music has that effect on certain people. It encourages reflection, silence, and, when one is fortunate, a far more selective use of the tongue. This particular piece rewards close listening. Its beauty reveals itself gradually, note by note, much like tonight's meal. Nothing hurried, nothing wasted. Only patience, structure, and the quiet confidence that, in time, all the essential elements will resolve exactly as they should. Our next caller's been feeling a bit down lately. His name is Thomas. Thomas, you're on the air.
Dr. Lecter, I feel as though I've gone numb. Food tastes fine, I suppose. Music sounds the same. I laugh when I'm supposed to laugh, but nothing seems to reach me anymore.
A loss of appetite.
I suppose that's one way to put it.
Appetite is one of life's great gifts, Thomas. Not just hunger, but the capacity to be moved, to savor, to desire.
And if that disappears?
Then one must begin, quite deliberately, to cultivate it again.
How?
Slowly. Prepare a meal with your own hands. Listen to a piece of music in complete silence. Taste something you once loved and ask yourself, what remains?
And if I still feel nothing?
Then continue.
Sounds discouraging.
On the contrary, some palates require stronger stimulation before they respond.
I'm not sure I understand.
Most people don't know what they hunger for until they encounter it.
I feel as though I've lost my appetite entirely.
That can be remedied.
You really believe that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm preparing something else alongside our veal this evening. A rather rare cut of meat of exquisite taste. I would tell you what it is, Thomas, but I'm afraid you might never try it.
I'm not sure whether to be intrigued or concerned.
Ideally, a memorable meal should inspire a little bit of both. Life is still offering itself to you, Thomas. The question is whether you're prepared to take a more generous bite. Start with one beautiful thing tomorrow. A meal, a piece of music, a work of art, and give it your full attention. You may discover that your appetite's been waiting patiently for something worthy of it.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter.
You're very welcome, Thomas. Good night. Our osso buco has been quietly braising for some time, and the kitchen is beginning to reward our patience. The veal has relaxed into the stock and wine, surrendering its structure little by little. The aroma is richer now, earthy, savory, with the sweetness of onion, carrot, and celery settling into something far more complex than the sum of its parts. Cooking, like psychiatry, is often a matter of restraint. One applies a modest amount of pressure, allows sufficient time, and waits for what is hidden beneath the surface to reveal itself. Tonight we turn our attention to the risotto. In a separate pan, I've gently warmed a small pinch of saffron. Such a delicate ingredient and yet so transformative. A few threads are all that's required to alter the character of an entire dish. I was first introduced to saffron in Florence by a curator. He told me the most extraordinary things in life are often used sparingly. A single note in a sonata, a brush stroke on a canvas, a carefully chosen word, or an ingredient whose value is understood only by a discerning few. Now, I'll add the arborio rice to the pan and stir until each grain is lightly coated with butter. Risotto demands attention. If neglected, it becomes dull and lifeless. If overworked, it loses all character. But treated properly, it develops a remarkable creaminess while retaining a subtle firmness in the center. I once prepared this for a guest who insisted he disliked saffron. Too exotic, he said. Too unusual. He felt much the same way about a rather unique cut of a certain kind of pork. And yet, he cleaned his plate. It's curious how often people reject a thing in theory, only to discover they enjoy it immensely once they stop asking too many questions. Now, as I add the first ladle of warm stock, we return to our simple task: paying attention. The most rewarding things in life, after all, rarely reveal themselves all at once.
Good evening. I don't need any advice tonight, but I was hoping you might recommend a wine.
A pleasure. What are you serving?
Braised short ribs.
Then I would suggest a Pinot Noir. It has the structure and depth to stand up to a slow braised dish, and enough earth to make the entire meal feel more complete. Decant it for at least an hour. Like people, some wines require a bit of air before they reveal their finer qualities.
I like that.
As do I. And if your guests ask too many questions, simply keep their glasses full. Enjoy your evening. Good evening, caller. You're on the air with Dr. Lecter. Please tell me, what's occupying your mind as you traverse the dark?
Good evening, Doctor. I'm just out here, rolling through the quiet spaces, watching the sky turn that nasty bruised color over the state line. Got a real soothing voice, Doc. Real clean, like a freshly washed sheet.
Cleanliness is a matter of discipline. I find it centers the mind. I can hear the hum of a diesel engine on your end. Long haul?
Always long haul, Doc. Always moving. But I've been listening to you talk about appetites. Talk about the things people do when the lights go out. It's got me thinking some things I've been seeing on my routes lately. Real peculiar things.
Peculiar in what sense?
Just a breakdown of things. Little bit of chaos bleeding out into the small towns. Folks get real interesting when they start to fall apart. They lose all that fake, polite skin they wear. They get hungry. Real hungry.
Ah, you're describing a surrender to pure, unadulterated instinct. The collapse of the social contract.
See, that's where you and me see things a little different, Doctor. Most folks look at it and see a tragedy. Me, I like the process. I like the way the skin goes gray like wet ash before they finally give in. The way the jaw slacks just waiting for that first real bite. It's beautiful, isn't it, Doc? Watching someone become what they were meant to be.
Admittedly, there's a profound honesty in predation. Nature's rarely tidy during any kind of transition. Tell me, when you witness this process, do you find yourself an observer? Or are you tempted to participate in the harvest?
Let's just say, Doctor, when the buffet's open and the meat is that fresh, it's a sin to let anything go to waste. I like to think a man of your refined tastes knows exactly what I mean.
Waste is the ultimate vulgarity. But remember, the difference between a beast and a craftsman is discernment. One must never let hunger ruin the presentation.
Oh, I'm always discerning, Doc. Real careful. I'll be listening to you. Keep cooking.
Next guest is calling from Montana.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter.
Good evening. What can I do for you tonight?
All right, this may sound a little strange.
The more interesting conversations often do.
Now, I hunt deer every season. father taught me, and now I do it with my sons. We harvest.
A tradition I very much respect.
Okay, what bothers me is I feel calmer when I'm dressing the animal than I do any other time in my life.
Calmer.
Yes, sir. It gets me quiet. It's just me, the knife, the work in front of me.
Complete concentration can be profoundly restorative.
Yeah, that's what worries me. I don't know what it says about me as a person.
It says you're fully engaged in the task at hand.
Well, most folks don't want to think about where their food comes from.
Many people are quite comfortable with consumption, provided they're spared the preparation.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
There's a certain honesty in knowing precisely where one's dinner begins.
So you don't think there's something wrong with me?
Not at all. A conscientious hunter understands responsibility. He sees the structure beneath the surface and makes full use of what's been given.
I do try to use as much of the animal as I can.
As one should. Waste is terribly discourteous.
I never thought of it that way.
There's something deeply grounding about reducing a living creature to its essential components.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels.
Then I would trust that feeling. Reverence and appetite are not mutually exclusive.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lecter. I feel better about it now.
You're very welcome. And anyone who approaches a meal with respect is already in very good company.
Hannibal? Hannibal, it's Will.
Good evening, Will. You sound tired.
I am.
Tell me what happened.
We caught a case outside of Richmond. Family of 4, husband, wife, 2 children.
Go on.
The killer broke in after midnight, shot the parents in their bed, then he carried the children downstairs.
As though preparing them for company.
He washed the blood off all of them, then dressed them in clean clothes and sat them around the dining room table. He poured red wine into their glasses.
A thoughtful touch.
Hannibal.
Forgive me. Please continue.
The father's chest had been opened.
Opened how?
Sternum was split cleanly through, heart removed and placed on a silver platter in the center of the table.
Extraordinary control.
That's what bothers me. There was no frenzy, no hesitation. Everything was deliberate.
What do you believe he was expressing?
Gratitude, maybe, or envy. He wanted to be part of something he could never have, or he never got.
So he created it.
Yes.
Will, when you place yourself in his position, what do you feel?
Calm. Like everything finally makes sense to me.
That is often what certainty feels like.
Sometimes I can't tell whether I'm understanding these people or I'm becoming them.
You are understanding them, Will. The fact that it troubles you is the clearest evidence that you do, in fact, remain yourself.
You make it sound simple.
It isn't simple, but your gift allows you to see what others can't.
He stayed in that house for almost 2 hours.
So it wasn't merely murder.
No.
It was a private celebration.
That's what it felt like he was gathering him up for a big event or news or something important.
The most revealing acts are often the most intimate.
Sometimes I think you understand these people a little too well.
Understanding is my profession, Will.
Right.
You should try to sleep.
I don't think I'll be able to sleep.
Then at least eat something. A hungry mind is prone to dark conclusions.
What are you making tonight?
Osso buco.
Sounds better than what I've been looking at all day.
You would be surprised how much perspective a well-prepared meal can provide.
Thanks, Hannibal.
Anytime, Will. And should this case continue to trouble you, my door is always open.
I'll keep that in mind. But good night.
Good night, Will. Try not to carry too much of this home with you. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Fortnum & Mason. For more than 3 centuries, Fortnum & Mason has provided discerning hosts with exceptional teas, preserves, chocolates, and gourmet provisions worthy of the most elegant table. Whether you're preparing a quiet supper for 2 or entertaining guests of particularly refined tastes, The quality of one's ingredients is never a trivial matter. I've always believed that taste is among the most revealing of human qualities. It tells us what we value, what we savor, and on occasion, what we're willing to overlook. Visit Fortnum & Mason and discover a world of carefully selected indulgences, each chosen to make your next gathering truly unforgettable. Fortnum & Mason, because the finest evenings are remembered long after the last course has been served.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter. Thank you for taking my call.
Good evening. It's my pleasure. Tell me, what's troubling you?
I suppose from the outside my life looks fairly successful. I have a good career, a family, a home. I should be grateful, and I am, I think, but lately I feel like I'm constantly waiting for something to collapse.
Collapse?
Yes, as though at any moment someone realizes I have no idea what I'm doing, that I'm not the person they believe me to be.
An imposter.
Exactly.
And how long have you felt this way?
Years, probably. But it's been worse lately. I can't relax. Even when I'm with my wife and kids, part of me feels like I'm still performing.
Performing for whom?
Everyone, I suppose. Clients, colleagues, my family, myself.
That is exhausting.
It is.
Many accomplished people spend their lives constructing a self they believe will be admired, competent, reliable, successful. Over time, the construction becomes so polished that they begin to mistake it for identity.
That sounds familiar.
We all wear our own carefully tailored masks. The difficulty lies in remembering what remains when they're removed.
And how do you figure that out?
By noticing the moments when you feel most at ease, most unobserved, most yourself. Not the man others applaud, but the one who remains when the room is empty.
I honestly don't know who that is anymore.
Then that's where your work begins.
Sometimes I feel like this life is eating me alive.
That sensation's more common than you might imagine.
I suppose that's reassuring.
Good. There's also a practical consideration. Perfectionism often disguises itself as virtue when, in truth, it's simply fear in more elegant clothing.
That's exactly what it feels like.
Try this, Daniel. Once each day, do something imperfectly and allow it to remain that way. Leave a letter unanswered until morning. Permit a task to be merely adequate. Notice that the world around you remains intact.
That sounds difficult.
Most worthwhile things are.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter. This was genuinely helpful.
You're very welcome. And remember, the self is rarely discovered. More often, it's uncovered. Our risotto is nearly there now. The arboreal rice has absorbed the stock one ladle at a time, and with each addition it has softened while retaining just enough structure to remind us that texture, like character, should never be sacrificed entirely. I'm adding the saffron now. A small gesture, but an important one. Within moments, the rice takes on that remarkable golden hue and a fragrance that is both delicate and unmistakable. There's a tendency in modern cooking to overcomplicate things. Too many ingredients, too much interference, too little confidence. The finest results often come from knowing precisely when to stop. The same can be said for conversation. Now, I'll finish this risotto with a knob of butter and a generous handful of Parmigiano. The result should be creamy, but not heavy. Luxurious, but disciplined. I once prepared this risotto for a guest who insisted he disliked saffron, marrow, and nearly everything else I placed before him. By the end of the evening, he had not only emptied his plate, but asked for my recipe. I told him if I listed every ingredient in exact detail, he might find the process less appealing. Some mysteries are best appreciated after the first bite. Now, the osso buco is ready. The meat yields effortlessly from the bone, and the marrow has softened into something almost indecently rich. I'll spoon the saffron risotto onto a warm plate, nestle the veal shank on top, and finish with a touch of gremolata, some lemon zest, garlic, and parsley. A final burst of brightness. Proof that even the richest compositions benefit from the note of contrast. And there we are. A dish of patience, balance, and excellent taste. Exactly the sort of qualities one hopes to cultivate in all worthwhile endeavors. And with a dish like this, one should choose a wine with enough structure to stand alongside it. Tonight I've selected a Barolo. There's a certain kinship between that and the osso buco. Both reward patience. Both reveal their character gradually. And both tend to linger in the memory long after the experience itself has ended. The wine's earth, dried rose, and subtle notes of tar provide a beautiful counterpoint to the richness of the veal and the delicate perfume of the saffron. Of course, a Brunello de Montalcino would be equally appropriate. But there is something about Barolo that I find especially compelling. Given time and air, it opens into something unexpectedly generous. Much like certain people, I would encourage you to decant it for at least an hour. Allow it to breathe, to reveal what lies beneath the surface. Patience, once again, is rewarded.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter. My name's Clarice. I'm a student.
Good evening, Clarice. What are you studying?
Criminal justice.
An admirable field. And what seems to be troubling you?
I keep having the same dream. It's not exactly a nightmare. More like a memory.
Childhood?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about it.
I grew up on a farm in West Virginia. When I was a little girl, there was one night I heard animals crying. I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew they were frightened.
And you remember the sound?
Very clearly.
Some sounds remain with us because they were heard before we had the words to explain them.
I can still hear them sometimes.
And how do you feel when you do?
Helpless.
Helplessness leaves a deep impression on a young mind.
I think that may be why I want to help people.
That's a very elegant response.
You really think so?
The impulse to protect others is often born from what we were once unable to save.
I've never thought of it that way.
Compassion is rarely accidental, Clarice.
Do memories ever like that go away?
No.
I was afraid you might say that.
But in time, they may cease to frighten you.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter.
You're very welcome, Clarice. And I suspect you'll do very well in your chosen profession.
That means a lot to hear.
Good night, Clarice.
Good night, Doctor.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter. I was listening to your conversation with Mr. Graham.
I suspected that might attract some interest.
He said I acted out of envy.
And I take it you have a more intimate understanding of the evening than Mr. Graham does?
Yes, Doctor. I do.
Well, then perhaps you can tell us what he misunderstood.
It wasn't envy. I didn't resent them. I admired them. They were having dinner when I first saw them through the window. The father carving the roast, the boys laughing, the mother pouring wine, everything seemed so warm, so complete.
And you wanted to preserve that feeling, didn't you?
For a little while, yes.
What did you experience as you watched them?
Loneliness, at first. And then a kind of peace, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Once I was inside, there was no hesitation. Afterward, I washed them and changed their clothes. I wanted them to look dignified.
As though you were preparing them for one final family supper?
Yes. I even opened a bottle of their Bordeaux. It seemed appropriate.
When everything was arranged to your satisfaction, how did you feel?
Grateful. For a few hours, I wasn't outside looking in anymore.
It's a remarkably honest answer.
Mr. Graham understands more than he wants to admit.
Will has an unusual talent for recognizing himself in others.
Do you think he'll find me?
Eventually. More pressing question is whether you have already experienced what you're seeking.
I'm not certain.
Then I suspect your feelings were incomplete.
You understand.
I understand the desire to hold on to something beautiful. The difficulty is that admiration often leaves traces.
Oh, that is very well put.
If I may offer one thought, some experiences are best appreciated briefly. Lingering tends to invite unwanted attention.
I'll remember that.
I imagine you will.
Good night, Doctor.
That last caller has left me in a reflective mood. Whenever I find myself contemplating the more unusual corners of human nature, I often turn to music. This piece tonight is one I heard many years ago in Florence, performed in a candlelit plaza just off the Arno. After the recital, I remained for supper with the host and his sommelier, a young man who possessed an impressive vocabulary and rather less judgment. He presented a superb bottle of Amarone, and with complete sincerity, suggested that it be paired beautifully with potato chips. I confess, I found the recommendation almost offensive. The wine deserved far more thoughtful company, and frankly, so did I. The sommelier, I'm afraid, did not remain at that establishment much longer. That evening, I enjoyed the bottle with a modest preparation of liver and fava beans, a considerably more harmonious pairing. Music, like food and wine, depends on balance. A strong note, subtle counterpoint, occasional moment of tension resolved with elegance. And when all elements are properly arranged, the result can linger with one for years. Now, let us listen for a moment and allow the music to say what words at times cannot.
Good evening, Dr. Lecter. Samuel Loomis. I believe you remember me.
Dr. Loomis, what a pleasure. I still recommend your monograph on predatory fixation to my students.
And I continue to revisit your essays on aesthetic psychopathology. Your observations have been most, shall we say, illuminating.
Very kind. How may I be of assistance this evening?
I have a patient who has occupied my thoughts for many years.
The young man you wrote to me about in Geneva?
The very same, yes.
And how is he?
Unchanged, I'm afraid. He has spent the better part of 15 years in silence. No remorse, no explanation. Nothing that resembles what we would ordinarily call a conscience.
And yet, he continues to fascinate you.
He does more than that. I have looked into his eyes, Hannibal, and I'm convinced that there is nothing there but an appetite for destruction.
A chilling assessment.
I have devoted years to understanding him, and I am no closer to explaining what he is.
Perhaps that's because explanation implies a conflict that may not exist.
You believe some men are simply complete?
Perfectly reconciled to their own nature. Yes.
It is a deeply unsettling thought. Do you believe such a person can be treated?
Treatment presumes a desire to change. Some patients are entirely content with what they are.
Then what remains for the physician?
Observation, prudence, and, when circumstances require it, distance.
Sensible advice.
Tell me, Samuel, after all these years, does he still disturb you?
He does, yes.
Then I would trust that instinct.
I suspected you might say that.
Fear is often the mind's most honest response.
Thank you, Hannibal.
Always a pleasure, Samuel. And should your patient ever decide to broaden his horizons, I'd be most interested to meet him.
Let us hope it never comes to that.
Indeed. Good night, Samuel.
Good night, Hannibal.
Dr. Lecter, my name's Evelyn Harper.
Good evening, Mrs. Harper. You sound distressed.
I am. My husband, Richard, he's been missing for 3 days.
Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that.
He was one of your patients.
Richard Harper. Yes, of course. A thoughtful man.
He had an appointment with you last Thursday. He came home afterward in the best mood I'd seen him in months. He said the two of you discussed music and wine and some dish you were preparing. Osso buco, I think. And he was so excited to try it. He said you'd invited him to dinner sometime.
Yes, Richard had a very discerning palate. I did say I'd love to have him for dinner sometime. I do occasionally extend hospitality to patients with a particular appreciation for the finer things.
Did he say anything to you that might explain where he went? He left the house Friday evening, and he never came back.
He struck me as a man who was eager for new experiences.
That doesn't sound like him. Richard was a creature of habit.
Even the most predictable people can surprise us, Mrs. Harper. Sometimes all they require is the proper invitation.
Did he seem upset?
Quite the contrary. He seemed deeply satisfied.
Satisfied?
We spoke at length about cultivating appetite, about allowing oneself to savor life rather than merely consume it. Richard was very receptive to that idea.
I just want to know if he's all right.
I understand. And while I can't speak to Richard's present circumstances, I can tell you that when I saw him last, he appeared to be in excellent spirits.
So you don't know where he is?
I'm afraid not. Though I do suspect he experienced exactly what he was hoping for.
I'm not sure what that means.
Nor perhaps should you.
Dr. Lecter, if you hear from him, will you ask him to call me?
Of course, Mrs. Harper. It would be my pleasure.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And if it offers any comfort, your husband was a memorable guest. Good night, Mrs. Harper. And try not to worry. Some evenings linger with us longer than others.
Good night.
Hannibal, Frederick Chilton.
Frederick. What an unexpected pleasure.
I've been listening all evening. Quite an engaging program.
Kind of you to say so.
Your discussion with Dr. Loomis was particularly stimulating. Two formidable minds examining the dark corners of human behavior.
Dr. Loomis is a thoughtful and experienced clinician.
Indeed, though I dare say the public has an equal fascination with our work at the Chesapeake Center.
Your enthusiasm for that institution's always admirable.
As a matter of fact, my new book has just gone to print.
Congratulations.
I'd be delighted to send you a signed copy.
I'm sure it will be difficult to ignore.
Quite. Tell me, Hannibal, why do you think people are so captivated by violent minds?
In some cases, genuine curiosity. In others, a desire to stand near notoriety and mistake proximity for insight.
An interesting perspective.
One sees it rather often.
Well, perhaps we should have dinner soon and continue the discussion. Always a pleasure, Hannibal. Good night.
Good night, Frederick. Good evening. You're on the air.
Dr. Lecter. My name is James.
Good evening, James. You sound troubled.
I am. I don't feel right in my own skin.
Must be a difficult way to move through the world.
Most days it feels like I'm wearing something that doesn't belong to me.
How long have you felt this way?
Since I was a kid, I guess. Keep thinking if I could just change myself, really change, things would be different.
Transformation is a powerful fantasy.
Doesn't feel like a fantasy.
No?
I've tried to become someone else before. It never lasts.
Reinvention requires patience.
My friend Benjamin used to say that.
Benjamin Raspail?
You remember him?
He was an interesting man.
He talked about you all the time, said you understood people better than anyone he'd ever met.
Benjamin was very perceptive in certain respects.
And then he disappeared.
Yes.
Sometimes I wonder if he finally became what he wanted to be.
Benjamin was always searching for something just beyond his reach.
I know that feeling.
Tell me, James, what is it you believe would change if you became someone else?
Maybe people would want me, maybe they'd look at me and see something worth keeping.
And what have you done to pursue that feeling?
I've started collecting what I need. Materials, patterns, pieces.
Preparation can be deeply comforting.
It is. When I'm working, everything gets quiet.
And when you imagine the finished result, how do you feel?
Hopeful. Do you think it's possible to become someone new?
I think we reveal ourselves through what we choose to cultivate. Question is, whether the person you're creating will finally satisfy you.
I don't know yet.
Then you must proceed carefully. Rushing a transformation seldom produces elegant results.
Benjamin said you'd understand.
Benjamin had excellent instincts.
Thank you, Dr. Lecter.
You're very welcome, James. And remember, most successful transformations are executed with patience, precision, and impeccable taste. And now, our evening's work is complete. The saffron risotto has settled into a rich golden bed of silt and spice. The osso buco rests atop it, the veal so tender that it yields with the slightest encouragement of a fork. A final spoonful of gremolata lends brightness. Lemon, parsley, and garlic offering just enough contrast to remind us that even the richest compositions benefit from a touch of restraint. Tonight, I'll enjoy this with the wine we opened earlier. Notice how the wine has changed over the course of the evening. What began as something stern and reserved has softened, revealing notes of rose, earth, and dried cherry. A little air, a little patience, and one discovers depths that were not immediately apparent. I've often found the same to be true of people. There now, a perfectly civilized supper. Ah, a moment if you'll excuse me. I do apologize. I have something rather special resting downstairs for an upcoming dinner party. One must occasionally reassure the ingredients that their patience will be rewarded. In time, of course. Thank you for joining me this evening. Whether we spoke of music, medicine, memory, or the quieter appetites that shape our lives, I hope you found something worth savoring. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Cultivate your tastes. Trust your instincts. And should you find yourself in Baltimore someday, I'd love to have you for dinner. Good night.